Someone asked me recently, well, how do you know when you're ready to share your story? Because as you just said, we've all dealt with trauma of varying levels. And to me, my attitude was you should share your scars, not your wounds. Because if you're asked to share and you're still so emotional, it just levels you, it's not helping you move forward. That's not helping you grow.
Welcome to Build Out. I'm Jim Kunkle, and today is American Businesswomen's Day. On this day, we celebrate women who are transforming the global business landscape for the better. America's workforce is strengthened by the talents and contributions of exceptional mothers, daughters, and sisters who are business owners, entrepreneurs, visionaries, and leaders. Today, we all recognize these amazing role models for paving the way for women of future generations to succeed while inspiring others to do the same. I'm so very honored to be the host of today's panel of successful businesswomen for a discussion and celebration on American Businesswomen's Day 2021. Welcome to today's episode. Today is American Businesswomen's Day 2021. And joining me today is an amazing panel. Hey, Jane, let's start with you. If you could introduce yourself and give a little bit of a professional bio on yourself.
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Jane Brown. I'm the CEO of Brown Corrosion Services out of Houston, Texas. We have had our company for about 27 years now. And I got into the business 31 years ago when I was in college, and my dad's a corrosion engineer and hired me to do some summer holiday work at a Norwegian corrosion monitoring company. And I had small hands, so I wired instruments and did filing and all sorts of fun little jobs. But it was a great intro to the business. And when I got out of school, I went to a dehumidification engineering firm just north of Boston and worked there for a few years. And then my father and I started our company together. And we haven't killed each other yet, which has been, I think, an amazing accomplishment, and been really lucky. We work primarily in the areas of internal corrosion monitoring, cathodic protection, sand monitoring, and just some general degradation issues related to failure analysis and lab work and things of that nature. And so active participant in the NACE AMP world, been lucky enough to serve on the board of directors and through Central Area and some of the other fun committees we have, within the organization. And then, been lucky enough to work on one of the transition teams moving NACE and SSPC to AMP. So it's been a really fun ride, I will say that.
Most definitely. MJ.
Thanks, Jim. Jane, that's awesome. So I'm MJ Callaway, and I have had, my background has been in sales as well as journalism. So most people don't think those two go together, but they actually work really well together, because what I had learned whenever I was a writer turned author is I asked a lot of questions because I did a lot of interviews with people. And that really helped with my sales career, because anybody in sales, or really anybody in business, you need to ask those questions to really dig down to find out what people need. What was interesting about my sales career is about 11 years ago, when I was going through some major personal challenges, I left a salaried position and had taken a commission-based position with a custom builder. It's a national on-your-site builder. And during the interview, they had asked if I knew, this was the third interview, if I knew what the difference was between a header and a footer. And I said, yes, because I did. But our perspectives of a header and footer were completely different. And I found that out the first day on the job. Having that writing background, I was thinking about a Word document, and obviously they were not. However, I did really well in that position. I became the only female sales executive who was in the top 5, and I sold 3 times my sales quota. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I was also doing some training with new hires. So then 7 years ago, I decided to go out on my own and I started MJ Callaway Training and Development. And I work on sales communication, presentation skills, and also building resilient teams, because resilient teams get more results and also increases revenue. So a little bit. And I guess the last thing I'll leave it with is I have authored or co-authored 11 books.
Oh, outstanding. Outstanding. Eleni?
Hi, I'm Eleni Anastos, a business strategist, prosperity coach, speaker, and author. And I specialize in helping entrepreneurs and executives bust through money and mindset blocks so they can create the income and the impact and the lifestyle they desire. Because any lasting change, professionally or personally, has to begin with an inside job. And I have met so many entrepreneurs or entrepreneur wannabes that have that fire, they have that passion, but because they don't see every step of the way, they don't even get themselves on the starting block. And I'm sure all of us at one point or another have felt that. And none of us are meant to do this alone. So I consider it a privilege to help entrepreneurs either launch their businesses or grow them in ways they didn't think possible. And executives as well, that, sometimes you're so entrenched, you're so committed, to the company, which is fantastic, but you feel stagnant, you feel stuck in some way. So it's time to look within. And then there are also what I affectionately call the corporate escapists, where you absolutely love what you do, you're so skilled at it, but the corporate structure no longer works for you. And as MJ just shared, maybe it's time for you to go out on your own, because you can do the part that you love from the outside going in. So I'm all about helping people reach those levels that they didn't think possible on their own, professionally and personally.
Outstanding. And Hiedi?
Thank you, Jim. It's an honor to be included on this, and especially listening to the introductions and being familiar with all three of these women's work. So thank you again. My name is Hiedi Brooks. My current role is Director of Sales and Marketing for VCP Sales. We are a startup company started in 2020, believe it or not. And we specialize in innovative pipeline integrity products, which we have 4 different pipeline coatings that we distribute and have launched in the last, 3 of them we've launched in the last year, that each one fills a current void in the market. I've been in sales successfully for over 20 years, and this is now my 3rd industry. But I've here today to share all of the consistencies that I've learned in my success in multiple real estate, hospitality, and now the oil and gas, which the oil and gas is my favorite. I always say if I would have known previously about this industry, I would have never probably started my own companies. And so I appreciate being on and look forward to the conversation today.
That's outstanding. I'm so honored to have all of you on for this panel and this discussion, and a very important day when it comes to American businesswomen. So when we look at American Businesswomen's Day and why it matters, could we share some of your success stories as American businesswomen? And Hiedi, I'm going to start with you first. What is one of your, an example of a success story for you as an American businesswoman?
Well, thank you, Jim. One of my success stories, I did leave out in my introduction, more detail, is I owned 3 different companies simultaneously for 10 years and very successful. I have since then come into the oil and gas industry and sort of started my career over. But one of the reasons I noticed early on in my success stories was having the attitude to serve, and as well as hard work. Now, those 2 things are not, now that I've learned now, everything that makes, sustaining success. However, that is a consistent thing. Hard work definitely played an early role in my sales career and entrepreneur career, and having the willingness to serve customers, employees, others kind of made me very resourceful in that aspect. So I would share in a generic way, those are two of the success aspects for sure.
Oh, perfect. Eleni?
Yes. And I just want to touch on, because thank you for what you were sharing, Heidi. You made me think of one of my favorite quotes is, if the whole world gathered to give, everyone would receive. If the whole world gathered to receive, no one would get anything. So about coming from that place of service is so important.
Yeah.
And for me, one of my biggest success stories is having the intestinal fortitude to start my own business in my 50s and not let others rent space in my head, because there were countless people but you're already of a certain age. Now I'm well aware of the number on my driver's license, so I don't need it reflected back to me. But also the whole idea that I think a lot of people get stuck in, but this is all you've ever done, but it's not all that you are. So if you want to be, do, or have something else that you don't have in your life right now, regardless of age, regardless of circumstance, I really hope that people will go for it and seek the support and the guidance that you need. So I'm glad that I had the guts to start my own business in my 50s and still going strong several years later.
Excellent advice. MJ.
Thanks, Jim. That is great advice. So I would say it's taken the risk. And I will say it in two different places. One, when I left the corporate position that was a salary position and then went into a commission-based only. But when I started my business 7 years ago, I did not want to work with, and I know this sounds crazy, but I didn't want to work with the fields that I had already worked, which was construction, which was engineering, manufacturing. And it ended up that those were the industries that worked well for my business. But my biggest success was I was working with a plumbing company, and I had 30 gentlemen in this class, in this workshop. It was a 5-week series. And they had never had training before. And they were the counter sales part of the company. And they were not happy to be there. It was 6:30 in the morning on a Friday, and it was mandatory. And you could see their body language. They were just slumped, and they didn't want, and here I come in, a woman, into these 30 guys. Most of them were baby boomers. And within the first 30 minutes, I did an activity to really push them out of their comfort zone. And it just changed the whole atmosphere of the workshop. And I'll say that was probably one of, from a business owner perspective, going in, taking that risk and, being able to turn the culture around and turn around the attitudes.
Wow, that's a great story. I know how difficult it can be sometimes working with others. So thank you for sharing that. And Jane, let's talk about your success story in the I would imagine the corrosion industry, correct?
Right. Well, I was going to say ditto to all you ladies, because I think, we've all had somewhat similar experiences in different industries. But, I think, to me, one of my successes would be that I have tried to serve the community that I work in. And, I ran into a guy a few weeks ago, and he said, "Hey, I really want to thank you for helping me get a job in the industry." And I'll be quite honest with you, I have no recollection of this gentleman whatsoever. I didn't recognize his name. I didn't recognize his face. And he said, "Oh, you took all that time with me and you mentored me and you did this." And I was thinking, well, super, that's great. And I do that a lot. So I'm sure I did. And he knew a lot about me. So obviously we'd had a lot of conversations, but I didn't actually remember it. And I think, when you do perpetually serve, it becomes an ongoing process in your life that you constantly look to give back. And, my parents always told us, whatever community you're part of, make it the best community it can be. And I love corrosion. I love the integrity business. I think it's fascinating and it's thought-provoking. I think it's the one business that they don't care if you're a woman. They don't care if you're purple. They don't care if you're handicapped. They don't care. As long as you bring passion to the job, you do your job well, you do it with integrity, you'll be a success. And I can't think of any greater business to be part of than that, personally. So I'm just my success is in its success, I would say, if there is a way to say that, Yeah.
Very, very good. Very good. When we look at American Business Women's Day and why it matters, a lot of it comes down to the matter being our life experience, our business life experiences. I'd be curious if you would share, if any of you would share some of your life experiences when it comes to business life experiences as women, business women.
I certainly would. I had mentioned Eleni and MJ in their books earlier, but the reason I mentioned it, because as a women business owner in my previous role, there were a lot of things that I did very successfully. Some would say I got too successful too fast. But one thing that I've learned now at 40 versus a few years ago is taking care of yourself. You are a business owner for a reason. It's not, because you got lucky doing it or whatnot. So it's important to remember that you are the business and to take care of yourself first and foremost. And I think that is a huge life lesson that I will carry with me now forever. And I see gratification from it, especially in my family and balancing and in my creativity a lot and almost instantaneously.
Very good. Anyone else would like to share a life experience?
I'd love to jump in.
Definitely.
And completely everything that Hiedi shared absolutely resonates with me. And one of the biggest things I've learned is to really be protective of my dreams, because I've noticed that people in general like to project their limiting beliefs onto you. I had a client who was super excited about starting her own business. She was so fired up, so passionate, enthusiastic. She couldn't wait to put herself out there and be of service into the world. And then she shared all these ideas with family and friends who immediately shot it down. Well, there's not enough clients. That's already been there, done that. Who's going to hire you? How are you going to ever make enough money to sustain yourself? And on and on. And you could see her literally physically deflate. And I'm sure that it's not that they had negative or bad intentions, but to be mindful that they're projecting where they're at. Maybe they don't have the courage, or maybe they have regret about not going after something. But I've had to be so mindful, because I've lost count at the number of times that, why don't you just retire? You're already, I'm 61, and people say, but you're already, north of a certain age. I'm just getting started in so many ways. So to be very protective of your dreams and not hesitate for a nanosecond to get the right help and support. Because as a coach, I get coached. In fact, somebody said, what's one of the things you look for in a coach? Or they wanted to know what they should ask. I said, ask them what kind of support they get. Ask them what kind of training they get. I wouldn't hire somebody that doesn't continue to work on improving themselves professionally and personally as well, because you don't want to go to a doctor that hasn't, cracked a medical book in 30 years. So we always need to be improving. We always need to be growing, but be mindful that you're already enough just as you are. Without question, you're already enough, but keep on that growth curve.
Yeah, believe in yourself. Don't let others take that away from you. And you can reinvent. We've talked about that on my live stream. You can reinvent yourself. There's ample opportunity to do that, and there's never a situation where you can't overcome it. Anyone else? Jane or MJ?
I was going to say second to that too. I've been very blessed to be in the oil field, I say, and every step of the way, yes, you have a few negative experiences here or there, but in general, I think the human condition is we want to see other people successful.
Yes, I agree.
think about, and I'll say especially, I've been doing this 30 years. Early in my career, there were very, very few women. But, if you asked questions and you listened and you were interested and accommodating to other people's schedules, people really wanted to share their experiences with you. They wanted to help you with advice or listen to what you needed feedback on and give good advice to you. And so I think, we have a little bit of a me society now where we look in an awful lot. But I think if people took more opportunity to, look out and ask for the help they need, ask for ideas and share with people, it would be a more positive society, because there's a lot more out there than there is in here, and there always will be. And, it's, I always say to my parents, I feel blessed for traveling, because the more you travel, the more people you realize that, yeah, we all have hurdles, we all have burdens, we all have bad things that happen. But I'll tell you, there's a heck of a lot more people who have it harder than we do.
Yeah, definitely.
The more people you meet, the more humility you have and the more opportunity you have to, say, gosh, I'm awfully lucky. Okay, I've got my struggles, but this person's got them harder than I do. And so I think that is a net positive for your business when you really, put it out there and then, build the positives that you can find and work on the negatives with the help from others.
Yes.
So true.
Yes.
And Jane, the other thing I want to add too, you grew up in the corrosion and in oil and gas and in those industries. And so you've seen an industry totally change. And what I'm amazed with all the time, when if I say your name, everybody knows you. You're so well known, and everyone loves Jane Brown. And so it's just amazing to see
everybody. Thank you.
I know we both have used that very extreme term. It's like
we have
self-conscious, but they all do.
They do. You don't know how much of an impact you've made.
Mm-hmm.
And I even point out too, like when I did live stream with you, we had 100 and whatever. We had a lot of people watching that live stream live, and so you're an icon in the industry. And you're very humble. You don't really play that, and I think that's so impressive. And to your point, like you help somebody and they recognize what you've done for them, and for me, I appreciate everything that you do for the corrosion industry and also for oil and gas and other aspects of infrastructure too. So thank you.
Well, thank you guys. But I appreciate, as we all get older, we look to our parents often and what we learned, say, at the kitchen table. And I think extremely blessed that my parents really strove to bring about humility, I hate to say it, not putting yourself first and putting others first. And I think a lot of people would be happier if they did more for others, because it is extremely fulfilling. And it's great that here and there people say like, hey, remember you got me into this business, or you got me my first job. And, I've built a career, I've supported my family on it. And I mean, I don't know a greater help you can give to somebody than giving them a career that they can be really proud of. And I think all of us in the integrity or corrosion sphere, I mean, our job is really important. And, we're pulling coupons or we're putting on pipe wrap, and, we kind of think it's a little job, but it's important. I mean, we're protecting this country's infrastructure all over the world. And, like I said, it's the one business that as long as you work hard and you learn, you're never limited. And I think it's the greatest business in the world. I really do. Like I'm completely enamored of the corrosion world. I just think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. I concur.
Very good. MJ, did you have go ahead.
I do. So I'm going to spin off of, actually, I could probably spin off of Hiedi and Jane. Yeah. I'll start with Jane. She's talking about community service and serving others. that is my family. Before I was in high school, moved 6 times. And I found jumping into activities or volunteering was the one thing that helped me make friends. And it was something that I had carried into my adult life. And I have met more people because of it and ended up with more job opportunities because of the volunteering with nonprofits. And you learn, going back to Jane saying, you continue to learn. It's amazing what you can learn as a volunteer or a board member on a nonprofit, for a nonprofit organization. I did 4 years, and my last year was my last year on the board for the National Speakers Association, the Pittsburgh chapter. And I spent 2 years as co-president. And I will tell you, I learned a lot about membership and marketing, and because we needed to grow the membership because we lost half of the membership. So growing it again, but that serving others. And that is what I had planned to do in that position, was how can I serve others? How can I bring others in who want to grow a speaking business and help them? So, and then just spinning a little bit off of Hiedi. Oh my goodness, Hiedi. It took me being diagnosed with cancer to actually realize I needed to step back, not put in 60 to 70 hours a week. So absolutely, that self-care is so important to us.
I will respond, yes, it is so important. I will add on to the community service. I volunteered extensively for 15 years since I was 20. Excuse my background noise. Since I was 20, and I started an advocate for abused and neglected children. I mentored in the public schools for 6 years. Did various work with Salvation Army and was on a couple of boards. When I closed my businesses, well, one I sold and the other 2 I closed in 2017, I also quit volunteering because I still served others, and I just didn't do it as extensively because I did too much. So it's important, I think, especially as women in business or women as a business owner, to certainly serve others. It's what we naturally want to do, but also recognize, while serving others, it can turn to a place from ego. It can be a distraction. It can also be, everything is good and balanced. So once, I did it extensively, and I realized that even though it was with the best intentions and I made a huge difference in my community and surrounding communities, it's most important to understand when that balance is key, whether it's in community service, serving others, serving employees, mentoring, or just doing business in general. So I think it's funny that as we all naturally gravitated towards serving others, I have that in the back of my mind. I do still volunteer lightly as of a year or 2 ago, but I haven't jumped into it as I did prior, but look forward to doing so. I just, it's funny. It's just, another positive thing from serving others is you learn instinctively some of your strengths. It's not just about meeting others and networking. It's about you're in your natural, well, at least for me, and I think for most people, you're in your natural environment when you're helping others, and you can see what you learn about yourself. And that was really important to me. Growing up and in my life now, with not having a lot of family, there's not a lot of people to turn to reaffirm who you are in every moment of time, dark and good. So by serving others, you learn who you are naturally and instinctively. So that was extremely positive.
And I loved hearing, Jim, I want to jump in as well, about the balance and the self-care. And the word boundaries came to mind for me.
Yeah. Yes.
I went through a lot of life lessons till it finally said, okay, boundaries actually to me should benefit both parties.
Yeah.
You know, like an ATM, if we just keep going and making withdrawals, then one day our little card's going to be rejected, insufficient funds. And we often, especially as nurturers, caretakers, end up doing that for ourselves. So I think having healthy boundaries, to me, it also gives the other person or the other party to the chance to step up into their power.
Yes.
And I think that's vital. So let's not rob them of the chance for them to grow and become an even more empowered version of themselves, you know, when you do have those boundaries, because then we can still come from that place of service where sales, to me, I've always been taught and learned that it's something you do for someone, not to someone. So that place of service and that right energy is there, but having those boundaries in place, we need to be able to connect, to cultivate by taking care of both sides.
Amazing. I so greatly appreciate sharing not only business life stories, but also personal life stories as well, because, you know, we learn so much about ourselves through our experience. And thank you for sharing that. Let's move on to the next topic, which is going to be on influences on the pathway for women leadership. We're going to segue into women leadership. You know, in researching for our conversation today, I had done some review of a Pew Research Center study that was done. The study was done with professional women, and it went very extensively over a period of time. It not only looked at the business aspect, but also their feelings, women's feelings, also life experiences that they had from grade school throughout college and other professional development that they had during their career. And what was interesting from it, and I pulled out three elements that I wanted to kind of talk and cover here. The first result from the study was that professional working women who were surveyed, they saw themselves as smart and, you know, growing up, and then they cited school and academics as an area where most felt like a leader. You know, obviously school, when it comes to grade school, high school, college, and postgraduate, school is very important to build someone's character, also to give them that fundamental understanding of what, you know, let's say on the business side, what business is. But also, too, there are other ways for women and men to obviously learn, you know, who they really are growing up and to become stronger business leaders. You know, is there anything that you would share regarding your background, your personal and professional experiences that point to that leadership development that you had?
Sure. I'll go first again. You know, I read, and I appreciate these notes for the focus of conversation. I think I read the professional working women surveyed saw themselves as smart growing up. Now, one thing that's important for me to get across during American Professional Business Women's Day is that all of us, I would say all women are business women, whether their business is their family, their marriage, their company, their role, their sales. All women are business women, and it's important that anybody can be successful in their business. And it's the reason I say this is I was extremely smart in school growing up. I was in spelling bees, but the background that I had didn't place importance on academics as much as other social skills or work, etc. So with that being said, I think it's important to also say that, you know, I did very well in academics, but as I got older, what I measured as well was being able to do just enough in academically so that I could work 2 jobs while living on my own at 16, et cetera, et cetera. So it's important that women from different backgrounds categorize and define success in different ways. And it's not just academic. I think one of the reasons why that was so commonly shared was because kids are in school all day. So for them to be measured in any role, it's mostly going to be, you know, in an academic setting. So I would say that all women are smart, but I would say that there are many leaders that probably didn't do as well academically as one would think. So
Yeah, and also too, I think you could throw out there too that you don't have to go to college or have a post, academic career, going for a master's or anything. That doesn't always mean that it's going to lead to you being successful or you becoming a leader. And so, those are great stories that I've encountered over the last number of years. Working in the coatings industry, I met a female abrasive blaster in the Philadelphia area that was making a lot of money at 26 years old, and graduated from high school, went into the military for just a couple of years, decided that's not for her, got out and got into industrial painting. And so there's a lot of opportunity. Now her pathway is, maybe she's in her 30s or 40s and decides to become a coatings inspector. So now she could even start her own coating inspection firm. So it's just amazing to also see those stories as well. And great point, Heidi. Anyone else would like to share on this topic?
I would love to jump in on what Heidi had mentioned. So Heidi, I wish I had those grades in school. So I was the opposite. I was an average student. And with that, what I'd say, anybody who's listening out there, it's okay if you are an average student, because one of my worst subjects was actually English. And here I am, how many years later, we'll keep that separate. I've had more than 2,000 articles that have been published traditionally. So meaning they've been published and I've been paid for them. And then I also have 2 books that have been published by Warner Books, now Grand Central. So it's okay if something you didn't do well, growing up, it doesn't have to define your future. It doesn't have to stop you from going after, as Elena said, your dreams. So taking in what is a passion, Jane, you have a passion for that industry. So it's looking at that passion, looking at where your dreams are, what you want from your life, and moving forward, and not letting the statistics or the labels stop you from reaching those goals.
Trusting yourself, for sure. Yes. And whatever you do it well and do it with passion. And that equals success in being a leader.
Without the passion, right? Because there's always going to be something that comes along, some bump in the road, some obstacle.
Yeah.
And how easy it will be to get derailed. And I had a lengthy career in education. I was born a teacher. And I remember countless times working with students who were, say, applying to get into an incredibly competitive college or some type of a program post high school. And they really didn't put a lot of energy into it. Well, I've got my 4.0. I've got nothing but A's. But they actually look at the whole person. So it was quite the light bulb moment for so many of them. And I think it echoes what we're saying, that it's not just about how well you scored on that test. Do you take initiative? Do you demonstrate leadership skills? What is your work ethic like? And I would always ask my students, now what? And I'm so grateful for how I was raised. I was raised in my maternal grandparents' home, and my grandfather, who was born in the 1890s, was very much the entrepreneur. And he sat me down at a young age and said, you can lose your money. People can steal your house, your car, you can lose your job, but you can never lose your education. And it didn't mean formal education. He said, once you have the knowledge to do something, no one can ever take that from you. You can always begin again. So I wish that more people would give themselves credit for their experience, their knowledge, their expertise, because it isn't just about the sheepskin on the wall. Because as I would tell students, okay, now what? Great. You got 100% on that test. You have all A's. What are you going to do with it? Matters so much more.
I forgot you were in education. Yeah, that's a great perspective as well.
I think too, I have kind of an interesting, I guess, abnormal education story. I finished college when I was 16. So you talk about people having big plans. I was like, holy geez, I'm 16. I have a bachelor's degree. What now? Like I literally, who at 16 knows what they wanted? I didn't know what I wanted to do. And, then I just carried on because I had this little bit of experience in corrosion and sort of kept doing it because frankly, I had to get a job, and it was sort of an unusual place to be as a young person, being in a professional working environment. But again, I would say obviously, I think I was very blessed to have a good education, but I think the greater education was being so young, being in a very adult world. You see a lot, and you see what is a successful person, the people who aren't using others or they're being more helpful are the better people. And I think you have that, I hate to say it, somewhat childlike, clear vision of right and good and bad. And so, I'll say I feel very lucky to, have had that experience. But, again, it's that's kind of the fun part of life, right? Is not always knowing where you're going, and not I think it turned out okay, but it's I think as women, there is a certain drive that we're supposed to have, that we're knowing where we're going. And, sometimes I think it's okay that we say we don't actually know where we're going. We're just going. We're on our path forward, and we'll see where we end up, and, do the right thing, hope for the best. Like Hiedi and all of you have said, you work hard every day at whatever you're doing. And then I think success does naturally follow you if you do so.
Everything that you all covered here in different parts of your conversation here, was really addressed in that Pew Research Center study, talking about really the foundation when it comes to life experience, training, growing up as young women and becoming professional women. The other thing too that the study had was that 76% of women wish that they had more leadership training and leadership opportunities while growing up. And, we've seen changes happen for women in business when it comes to leadership. Things are improving, but we still have a very low single-digit amount of women leaders that are currently, at least here in the States, that are actually running organizations, that are running companies and things like that. When it comes to the leadership training, what more is needed?
I think recognizing, one thing I try to do now is recognize when, how do I word it? Recognize someone that might need inspiration or being proactive, even if it seems awkward. When I see another young woman who may be naturally successful or naturally a leader, but hasn't received any advice or received any role modeling or not that I am, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I try to inspire younger women, and I purposely will seek them out because I agree with that statement. Had I had I worked really hard. I was a young mother of my son to send my son to private school. And the reason I did was because I was a natural leader in high school. And I thought that because I went to public school, I was just one of the numbers. But if someone would have almost reached out to me and said, this or this, or gave me some leadership classes or anything like that, I always imagined that I would have been a little bit further in making certain choices. And so I worked really hard to send my son to private school, thinking it would be a smaller community. And it was great experience for the most part. But I think that leadership is still lacking because kids, are leaders. They're leaders in their classes. They're leaders outside of academics. I recently worked at in the last few years, impoverished Strickton High School in Michigan. And the leaders that were in that school was just, I'd never seen anything like it. I grew up impoverished, so I did see something like that growing up. But as a successful adult, I had never seen the leadership skills and trying to figure out. I was just so interested and intrigued and, of course, inspired by it. And I would certainly be proactive in little things that they could do, not just academically, but leadership aspects that I would try to teach them in the short time that I knew them, that they already have, that they should focus on when being a high school student.
Oh, Hiedi, I totally appreciate what you're saying, like preaching to the choir. I love it. And I agree that there's leadership in all of us, 100%. But as you were saying, that people need to hear it. They need to know. Because I believe we all create our lives. We're all creators, but are we conscious creators? Are you creating the life that you want in a positive direction? Or are you creating a life that's not the direction you want to go? Because if you want to believe, and many people are taught this and it's reinforced, your results, your circumstances, your environment, that's never going to change. Why bother? Instead of being told, yes, you have the power
Absolutely.
to control your results, your circumstances, your environment. You can.
And here's how you're already practicing it that you don't see.
Right, exactly. So proactive or reactive in your life. I want to be proactive. And granted, I wasn't always, because, okay, well, this is what's happening outside of me. This is my lot in life, but no. So yes, for all of us, I think it's incumbent for all of us to really reinforce, to help people step up into their own power and consciously create the life that they want to have moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's recognizing too, when someone is seeking help with a question. This recently happened. I met with a woman young woman, new in her career, and she started asking me a few questions. And by the questions she had asked, she was looking for someone to mentor her, to help her along. And we had agreed that that's what I would do. She can reach out to me. I will answer questions for her. And she's also she's in a business development position. So I would be a perfect resource for her. But it's being tuned in to the questions someone's asking. And this happened, even though she was female, this happened with a young pharmacist who was reaching out. He wanted to do some changes in his career. And he had reached out and he asked a few questions, and we started talking. And then he did come out and he asked, will you mentor me? But listening to those questions to see, how can we help that person? How can we be a resource to develop that leadership? And then we do need to put it on companies to bring in more training to help develop leaders.
Yeah. So let me, before we would get into our final topic here, I'm going to have a short video on the American Businesswomen's Association and talk about why women need to join the association. But the association has women leadership training. And I'm not saying that it's tailored, obviously, like when you look at leadership training, and then this is a question I'm going to ask you. They have leadership training that is obviously geared towards American businesswomen to help, obviously cultivate that leadership desire and drive, and then also to lay that pathway for women to get into leadership tracks and things like that at their companies and organizations. Is there, currently with a lot of leadership training that's offered, is there gender biases or preconceptions that only men can be leaders? And that's where that training, is that what, and this is an opportunity here, because my recent experience in taking leadership training, I kind of viewed it as being neutral, but again, I'm a man, so I might not recognize that. Where obviously the four of you are going to say, Jim, you're absolutely wrong. It's definitely gender biased. Anyone want to jump into that hornet's nest?
I'll start by, at least for me, and I'll say, primarily, I greatly appreciate my work within the NACE organization, because most of my leadership training per se has been through that. But I don't think leader is a male or female thing. It's neither. It's a personal thing. It's a character thing. And, following to what you all had just talked about, I find, leadership has different levels as well. And, often I say that if you as a leader put somebody else in a leadership role and they fail, that's not their failing, that's your failing, because you've maybe put them in something that they're either not comfortable doing or not capable of doing or don't have just the background skills. And so that as we create leadership, we have to look at what's the personal drive for each person and what is their particular skill set. There's a reality that if somebody significantly fears public speaking and they can't get over it, they will limit their, if I can call it, public leadership opportunities. And that's just, we don't like to talk about anything that limits people nowadays, but there's real life, and real life does limit all of us. Some people, don't like people with red hair, or they don't like, people who walk with their toes pointed out, or whatever the case is. And you can't change those biases, So I think, when we as leaders look to mentor others, we always have to be sure that we're not mentoring them to bring them to maybe where we are, but we have to mentor them to bring them to where they want to be personally.
And what I'm hearing from everybody, Jim, and I just want to echo, I think the greatest gift we can give them is teaching them to be a leader in their own life. Mm-hmm. So yes, I agree with what everybody has said, but you need to be a leader in your own life. The path, who knows? Everybody's going to be on a different path, but being able to take the initiative and be a leader in your own life to consciously create what you want professionally and personally, I think is the best gift we can give anyone.
Very true. Very true.
Agree.
Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play the video review on the American Businesswomen's Association. So if you could hold on for just 1 minute. I hope that you're finding value with today's conversations with Jane, MJ, Eleni, and Hiedi. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about the American Businesswomen's Association and encourage you to become a member of the association. The American Businesswomen's Association, or ABWA as it's known today, was started in 1949 to bring together businesswomen of diverse occupations and to provide opportunities for them to help themselves and others grow personally and professionally through leadership, education, networking support, and national recognition. Annual membership with the association is $115, and membership provides many value-added benefits for members, as well as professional resources, national networking meetings, and special events. After this special episode ends, please hit the internet and check out abwa.org. That's abwa.org, and consider becoming a member. Now back to our conversation. All right, I appreciate our conversation that we've had. We'll go ahead and get into the last topic conversation, which is going to be on the importance of businesswomen professional networks. Earlier in our conversation, we talked about mentoring and mentorships. How important are they to American businesswomen today?
Huge. You make me think of a conference I went at many, many years ago. And especially when women aren't afraid to share their success, aren't afraid to shine their light. To me, I always see that as an example of what is possible. This event I was at, they were bringing out the quote unquote success panel, and everyone was going to share their story of how they achieved that level of success in their individual fields. My traveling companion left the room afterward, and I stayed to talk. And afterwards, when I went to say, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And she said, "Well, what's wrong?" She went right into comparison-itis. Mm-hmm. That's a dangerous place to be. And when you have a positive network, when we lift each other up, as cliche as it sounds, a rising tide lifts all boats. And my friend was, "What's wrong with making $5,000 a month?" I said, "Nothing, if that's what you need and that's what you want." And she started to say, "We're not like them." I said, "First of all, cut out the we shit. You and I are not alike." And she said, "Why?" I said, "When they shared their stories of success, you ran away. I ran up to them and said, 'How did you do it?' Because I was mindful to not go down that comparison. Well, of course, if we compared ourselves even on this panel, we could start to shrink. But we all have different paths. So when you look at, especially in a networking environment, look at someone's success as an example of what is possible with the right mentorship, then you can raise your game. So yes, I think the positive networking and mentoring is vital to elevate everybody's game.
Definitely. I mean, I remember,
Agreed.
when I first started as a profession and I was more sales at the time, and this was in the early 90s, Bob McClure, he's passed away a long time ago, was a very elderly guy, lifelong salesperson. And he really taught me the ropes, and I learned so much from him. And a lot of it was just matching and mirroring what he was doing. But also, I was in my mind, I was writing out the 10 commandments of, what I should do according to Bob McClure. And he taught me so much that really kind of humbled myself, but also set a good pathway for me on how to be a professional, how to really kind of live my life as a professional person. And it also transcended into, my family, raising 2 daughters. And, I just celebrated my, this past summer here, our 32nd wedding anniversary. So, those things are milestones, and they make me feel good, and they make my family happy. But, mentoring is such an important aspect of our professional life. And I know all of you you've been mentored and you've mentored people. Would anyone want to share some success stories with mentoring?
I saw a life coach for many years, I think 7 or 8 years. And what he always helped me with was validating, issues that he helped me in validating myself. And with validating myself, I sought my intentions a little bit more clearly, or I sought my priorities a little bit more clearly and intentionally. As a mentor, I've mentored, I've had over 100 employees, for a prolonged amount of time. And I'm sure that I've mentored in some way, and I'm sure I pissed people off. But as an official mentor, I've really only mentored children or teenagers. And I was just myself in that role only because I was scared and apprehensive to teach them something when I was still improving myself, and always will be. I'm plagued with this pressure to be a better person all the time, to a fault sometimes, but I was just myself because I knew that there was something about me that was special like everyone else, but also unique to myself. And so I thought, even though I don't know how to communicate that, or I don't feel comfortable shining that on someone else, I made sure that I was my best self when I was in a mentor role and would listen. I think a lot of times having someone that you might consider a leader or a mentor listen to you as a child, teenager, or an adult validates you naturally. And I know there was a little girl that I mentored for 6 years, the same one, 6 years throughout her elementary education. And I just listened to her. And a lot of times, I started doing that young, so I was a little more self-conscious anyway. But a lot of times I was scared to mentor because sometimes I didn't feel my best self too, but I would just be myself. And at those times I would listen. And I think that validates the other person. Just listening, as a mentor helps the other person.
Very good. Very good. So, obviously, today, we're celebrating American Business Women's Day and talking about the American Business Women's Association. When it comes to involvement with trade groups and other organizations, how critical is that?
I would love to jump in on this one. I think and probably everyone here believes it is critical. The one thing that whenever I joined any type of organization, there's 2 things that I look for. And this is what anytime that a young person is coming asking, or even, colleagues, I always give them these 2 ideas. When I'm looking for an organization, I want 2 types of people to be in that organization. One is a player, and the other one is a mountain guide. And the player, think about this, and I get this from my son when he played basketball. He always went to a specific basketball court because they had the Pitt one Division I players, Pitt basketball players, Division I, and he was a Division III player. He knew by playing these Division I players, it made him better.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for someone who is a few steps ahead of me that can make me better. And then the other one is, right, Heidi?
Yes, yes. We will always be a mentee as well. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And then the other one is a mountain guide. And the mountain guide is the person who's already, they've climbed the mountain, they have the scars, they've been through the bushes. They didn't read a book about it, they've actually experienced it. Because that person can give you so much more just depth to the subject and and for me, this was someone I was looking for a new business model after I had been diagnosed with cancer, because I knew my business model would not work moving forward. And I found someone who had the exact business model I wanted. And that person was in this one organization, and that was my mountain guide. That person had already made all the mistakes. So those are two. So whenever you're looking for an organization, especially as you're starting out in your career or wherever you are in your career, those are two kinds of people that we can be mentored, by.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and then talk about obviously social media platforms and social media. Currently this broadcast is on LinkedIn, which is a powerful network, both as a social network, but also as a professional network. But we also find today that a lot of professionals, men and women, are utilizing other social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, obviously Facebook, even other platforms such as YouTube and things like that. What's some of the advice do you have when it comes to etiquette and also how to effectively use social media platforms for professional women?
Yeah, I had an entrepreneur reach out to me recently, and we were in a Facebook group that was all about, personal development and athleticism and whatnot. But she reached out to me and said, "Would you take a look at my social media?" I said, "Absolutely," because she was very stagnant in her business. And I was looking at all of her posts and all of her accounts. I said, "I have no flipping idea what the hell you do." I'm looking at everything day after day, week after week. And I said, "You're so all over the map." So it's important to present yourself to be targeted. And if you're using social media, obviously to grow a business, to grow a following, then you have to be focused and targeted. I should be able to look at a half a dozen of your posts and get a sense of what you do and who you are. But if you're just going to throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, it's not going to benefit you in any way. And regardless of it being virtual, to me, it's still about connecting to cultivate. First and foremost, relationships will always be the real currency. So please never use social media. Say somebody started following you, or LinkedIn's a great example. Someone will request connection. I connect. If their very first email to me is, "Hey, this is what I do. I think it could help your business. Let's book a conversation." We're done. Because it's not about the relationship. So make sure to me, social media has to be a long game. Connect to cultivate and be focused in what you're putting out there so people can get a sense of who you are and what you do.
And I think, Jim, you and I have talked a little bit about it. I'll say LinkedIn nowadays is chock full of pictures of really beautiful girls. Like, I don't even know where they come from. They're so beautiful, and maybe they're filtered. I don't know. But I sit and I look at their job titles, and I don't actually know what they or their company do. And, maybe I'm a little bit of a nerd, but I think, show me that cool, like Heidi's post. I love Heidi's post because she shows me field photos, and I really like them, and I find them very interesting. I think there's an element of self-promotion now that has sort of leaked into every aspect of life. And although the me aspect is there's probably a positive in it, I think, especially when you talk about social media, and granted your personal Facebook page is different, but like on LinkedIn, some of these, and I hate to say it happens to be women in particular, I think, show me what you do. I'm interested in what you do. I'm not interested in your cleavage first thing on a Monday morning, frankly. I think it detracts personally from the message of business. And, I know it's a different time, and I'm probably dating myself and making myself sound really old by saying this, but, I do, I think, women in particular, and, my mom used to always have these truisms where she'd say, like, if you go to some man's hotel room, you know why you're there, and things like that, which I hate to say as a 14-year-old, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. But, as I get older, I get what she was saying. I think how you present yourself, you have to be aware of that. And there might be I think there's a new messaging that, like, you should be able to behave any way you want and wear anything you want and do anything you want and still be respected. But then there's reality.
Yeah.
And there's a harsh reality in the world that, if you behave certain ways, people will get a certain impression of you. Well, and so I think women in particular have to be very aware of that.
Yeah. They're going to combine what you and Eleni said, social media is about the long haul. It's about sustaining. Yep. And what you're mentioning, I see as well. And that instant gratifications of a lot of likes does not mean that that's going to be a sustaining customer, or they're going to perceive you as, I think a lot of those girls do that and they don't understand that that is how you're going to be perceived, meaning, which they'll say, yes, I do understand that, but really you don't, because you're only going to be perceived as yourself. And unless you're willing to always learn, to always speak about, if this is like LinkedIn professional environment, unless you're, talking about learning processes or things like that, or your products or anything outside of you and your filtered look, then it's not going to be sustaining. It's only going to be about you. And who wants to sell or develop based off of, because I certainly have bad days and I certainly have variables that I can't control sometimes. I want to base it off of, my willingness to learn or showcasing other people. I had a guy that Purdue short courses tell me, wow, you look better in person than you do on your pictures. And I started laughing and I was like, I don't think that's such a bad thing. I like, I don't photograph well, but I also like that. I don't want to be the focus all the time because I'm not perfect, but my products certainly are,
Right. And, it's interesting. We have a little Women in Corrosion, a little chat on LinkedIn, and it usually is things that we've seen that's interesting or whatnot. Well, there's a particular gentleman in our business who comments on like every pretty girl's photo, and somebody sent a note the other day and they were like, I will not be ever calling on this guy. And he's almost made himself a social pariah because it's so bizarre how he comments. It's a little creepy, frankly. And so I think, it goes both ways, right? For everyone. But, like everybody said, it's the long haul and the impression you leave, and it's all social media. I mean, you see it across the board, in everything. But I think, as business people, if you don't stay focused on the business, then you do lose the message at some point.
Right. Yeah, I have a very simple quote that's one of my favorite quotes, that when one of my businesses did fail, well, not really, but in my eyes, my friend told me, Hiedi, the cream of the crop will always rise to the top. And I thought that it's always stuck with me. I knew that before, but I had never resonated with it so much because it's true. And I'm very faith-based in the sense that I give credit, to God, because there are a lot of times that I didn't think I could rise to the top, but Bygone, I do. I do. And I do it by doing nothing else but me. So the cream of the crop will always rise to the top, and that's the sustaining way.
And it also comes down to, too, every post needs to hit every generation. You know, it has to be acceptable to every generation. And also if I do a lot about through DISC and personality assessments, and every single personality too, you know, of the 4 personalities, you know, some of those, what you're mentioning, some of those photos, those might be okay for an I, but they're not going to work for a D, an S, or a C. You know, so thinking about not only generations, but also personalities.
Very true. That model testing that you just brought up is it's a very good basic way to streamline prospecting, by the way. I don't remember the title, but that's true. And that's a good way to communicate it. It's not going, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, no matter how many likes you get.
Exactly. DISC.
I think
DISC.
Yeah.
Too, we talk a lot now about, politics. It sort of pervades everything we all do. But, I'll say for me personally, if I'm on Facebook with you, which I have a very small group on Facebook, but I'm happy to know your political affiliations. But, I have to say, I don't really want to know a company's politics. I don't want to know a person's politics on LinkedIn. For me, it's a turnoff. I know, I have some clients, who have told me I don't want to know, and I don't want people weighing in, and I don't want them pushing their opinions, on me. And it's just, it's nice to have, I think I hate to say it nowadays because it's so overwhelming that you can't escape politics. I'll say LinkedIn in particular, people look to that as almost a safe space from it,
Yes.
I don't have to consider what Jim, who he's voting for in this election. And I think that's kind of a nice thing. I think it's a nice escapist thing that I personally enjoy LinkedIn far more than I do Facebook now because it is free. It's about business, and business is something, I can look at a good drill rig putting in a CP ground bed, and I think that's really fun and exciting.
Me too.
When you're bombarded with politics, I think it does become a burden at some point mentally, which none of us need right now.
Well, Jane,
a lot of people don't realize that we can all see who comments on what and likes what, even if it's not on your own page. I think that's important to say.
Yes.
Right. Being mindful, being authentic. And just because you're invited to the party, because even on LinkedIn, I still see people kind of putting things out there to try to get something contentious going. Obviously, you can always choose whether you're going to participate or not. So just being mindful, I keep myself out of the fray because I'm there to connect with people that I believe I can be of service to. So I always go back to my intentions, and my intention is to connect, to cultivate.
For the record, I'm voting for Jane Brown.
Second.
What a great conversation. This has been a really great day to celebrate and have a great conversation. In closing out this episode, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd want to leave with the viewers?
I'll jump in with, because I had mentioned the personality assessment. Those personality assessments have come in so handy for me when I was in a sales position. I mean, I will say that's probably why I did so extremely well. And also whether it's communication professionally or personally, because it helps you understand how other people communicate. So that would definitely be one. And then the other would be Strength Finders. If you have never taken the Strength Finders test, knowing especially your top 5, Because then when you're stuck, somebody mentioned, a client was stuck. When you're stuck or when you're not moving forward, hitting those goals, if you go back and you look at those first 5 strengths and say, oh my goodness, I'm not doing this because I'm not utilizing my top 5 strengths. So those are 2 suggestions that I would give out to American business women.
Excellent. And I would definitely like to see women, everyone, take a hard look at your results, your circumstances, and your environment. And if you say, like, I want to be a 7-figure business owner, but your current circumstance and environment is the complete opposite end of that, you have to be in alignment. Your results, your circumstances, your environment have to be in alignment with your ultimate goal. And if they're not, you're one decision away from a different life. Doesn't mean it's changing overnight, but the decision can happen in an instant. So don't rob yourself of the chance to pivot and to reinvent yourself at any age.
I think that I completely agree with both of yours. And MJ, thank you for bringing up the Strength Finder. I'm not sure, I've taken other tests, but I'm not sure I will have done that one. So I will. I think it's important for American businesswomen to understand that fear, sometimes something that you fear, when you get the feeling of fear, a lot of times that could be exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So instead of running from it, face it. And by facing it, I mean, find tools to help you face whatever it is that you're fearful of, because you'll find your natural strength usually in that vulnerability and fear.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. Go ahead, Jane.
I was just going to say
Definitely.
I think too, for all of anybody who goes into business, it's a leap of faith. It'll always be a leap of faith. And it's a really hard leap of faith now, because it's not like 30 years ago where you could hang out your shingle and go to work. Now you have compliance and insurance and all these fun things. But, it's a challenge, but there's you look to most successful business owners and they've had many failures. Mm-hmm. And so I think all of us, have to keep both our business and our personal failures in perspective, that they're just a learning stepping stone, and on we go to the next challenge, Mm-hmm.
Excellent. For those that would want to have a professional connection with you, Jane, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Probably email jane@browncorrosion.com.
Excellent. And MJ?
MJ@mjcallaway.com.
Eleni?
Eleni@elenianastos.com.
And Hiedi?
You can certainly find me on LinkedIn by spelling my name right, Hiedi Brooks, or hbrooks@bcpsales.com.
Excellent. And thank you everyone for watching this episode, and for the panelists, thank you all. I greatly appreciate this opportunity to celebrate this day and have a great conversation on being American businesswomen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, ladies.
Excellent. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I really appreciate this episode's panel of exceptional businesswomen, and I hope that you found value in our conversation. This American Business Women's Day and beyond, we must continue to empower and to promote women in the workplace, because investing in women is investing in a future of economic growth and prosperity for us all. Thank you.